Have you ever been asked to do something that you've never done before and you're pretty confident you're not going to do a good job at it? And you might even feel nervous because it's something really important. Well, I experienced that. I had just gotten promoted and I actually hadn't even put the rank on. I was in the military, just got this a line for staff sergeant, which is the first step in non-commissioned officer levels. Now I was waiting to put this stripe on. I had never been a supervisor of anybody before, never been put in the role of leadership. And here I was tasked to take a team to Iraq. Now, it wasn't my first time to Iraq, but it would be my first time being in a leadership role and going to Iraq and being responsible for bringing people back. There wasn't a checklist of things that I needed to do to make sure my team was ready. I didn't get guided on any of this stuff. I probably should have went and asked some questions, but I guess I did what I always do, and I just kind of wing things. Well, I think the only thing I really did to make sure we were all prepared was I had a barbecue. I cooked for the team, and then we went on our way. The way that the structure for this deployment went was that small teams from all over the country met up at one centralized training location right in Vegas. They bring enough small teams together. Our team was either 7 or 9 people. Most teams were probably somewhere between 13 to 30 people. And everybody that led those teams were much higher ranked than I was. So when we got there, it wasn't like it was crazy. When they said, hey, who's your all's team leader? Or who all here is the team leaders? Everybody would raise their hand. And I was like the guy that they didn't even believe was actually a team leader. So I was definitely fighting an uphill battle. Anyways, we get into the training sessions, and this is where the real story goes, where I made a real bad mistake that it's kind of, taught me a lesson throughout my whole life. And that is, back then I used to be a smoker. And one day after training, we got into this time where we could have a break. And I was smoking. And one of the other higher ranking people on the team, like we were all very low ranking because I was the highest ranking. And somebody came up to me and was like, hey, so-and-so doesn't have all their uniforms ready. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, to kind of fill you in, when you get your uniforms, it doesn't have anything on it. There's no name tape. There's no rank. There's no unit patches. There's nothing. And you get issued 4 uniforms for deployment, and you're expected to go get all the alterations done. Well, one of the guys only got the alterations done on one of his uniforms. And he should have had it done on all 4. But because of the way I was brought up as a kid, or the way that I thought I saw leadership being handled in the military, my first instinct was to get mad. And as soon as I saw him walking by, I called him over and I started yelling at him. I told him to stand at attention and I started chewing him out. Spit flew out of my mouth and he went to wipe it off of his face. And I yelled at him for doing that because I didn't tell him he was allowed to move. It was horrible. I felt bad about it. I felt bad about it then, not at the moment. In the moment, I thought I was doing the right thing. Like, that's how you're a leader. So anyways, I went on to chew him out for a little bit longer, and then I gave him like an impossible task. I told him, because we got issued these little packets of sewing kits, just in case you rip a hole or something like that, or a button fell off, you could fix it. Well, I told him I want him to take that sewing kit and get all of his uniforms ready by the next day. I mean, there was no way he was going to do it. It's not like I thought he knew how to sew or anything. I just was giving him this impossible task and going to see how far he could take it. But I told him to go away. He went to work on it. Later that evening, I went out for another cigarette. It was probably after chow. And I went to go get that cigarette. I saw him out kind of in the parking lot area sitting on the little, like the curb. But he looked beaten down and he looked really upset. He almost looked like he was crying, but from a distance, I couldn't tell. But I decided, I should probably go check on him and see how he's doing. I did chew him out pretty hard. So I go over to him And I asked him, "Hey, what's going on?" And he just broke down. He started telling me about all the stuff going on in his life. And I could relate to almost everything except for that he had it worse, I think. So if I remember the story right, it's been close to 20 years, not quite, but close. He had gone through a divorce, lost children, was paying alimony, child support, got a car repossessed. He was just in like financial ruin. His family had fallen apart. Just was not good. Now, at least that's the way I remember the story. It could have been worse, but I don't know how much worse. And it could have not been quite as bad as I remember, but it was a pretty bad story. And in that moment, I just, I just felt so gross and bad because I had actually just gone through something almost as bad. I went on a previous deployment, and while I was deployed, I was married. And while I was deployed, that woman got pregnant with another man's child. She left our house to be not paid for, so it got foreclosed on. A car repoed. Luckily, I didn't have children with this lady, and so we went through a divorce. It was a hard time in my life, and I know what it felt like to have such hardship for myself, so I could relate. And then to pile on top some guy that doesn't know anything about what you're going through, yelling at you because of your financial. He was going through financial ruin. He couldn't afford to get his stuff done. He should have spoken up. Well, I know that when you're in that mindset, you're not thinking 100%. You're not thinking clearly enough to raise your hand and ask for help. But it was my responsibility as the leader. There's a couple things I did wrong. One, when I found out initially that he didn't have everything sewn onto his uniform, I should have started the conversation with, "What's going on? What happened? Why didn't we get this done?" Another thing that I should have done was before we even left, I should have done what's called bag drags. I should have also just got to know him a bit and have a little bit more conversations and see what's going on in his life. I didn't have that many people to check in with. I should have been a little closer with the team. But the bag drags would have helped. See, in a bag drag, you have everybody bring everything that they're going to take on the deployment. You have them take everything out of their bags. You have a checklist. You go through and make sure everybody has everything on the list. And if I would have done that, it's likely I would have seen that he didn't have all of his stuff on his uniform, and I would have been able to address it. And we probably would have made it so that he didn't go on the deployment. He shouldn't have been there because his mind wasn't able to be focused on the deployment. It was going to be distracted, thinking about home and all the trouble that he had to come back to and how he had to put it all on pause. Or maybe he was going to be dealing with it while he was deployed. It was a risk to have him there, but maybe he looked at it as a positive thing because he could make the extra money he needed to dig himself out of a hole. I'm not sure how it all turned out in the short term for him. I know I can go back and find him on Facebook, and it seems like he's got a better life now. But back then, I felt really bad for what I did. And I feel like I learned a lesson that was invaluable. I think that's the word. Now, I try not to get angry immediately. Back then, I thought that being aggressive and being vocal and loud and intimidating, that was the way to get the respect that the position deserved or whatever. But I've learned since then that that's not how it works. Even if you do want to be a disciplinary at the time, you don't have to be all hard on people. But it took that experience for me to learn, and it's been lifelong because, like I said, it's been almost 20 years. So we ended up getting through the deployment. We ended up coming back home. I made some lifelong friends. We all survived. We all came back home, and we all came back in one piece. So I can be thankful for that. But I'm glad that that happened early in the deployment so that I had some time to make up for it throughout the rest of the time that we were gone. But ultimately, it was a big learning opportunity for me. And hopefully, the story's helpful for you. I know for me, uh, I use it every day. When my kids do something that I don't understand why they did it, I use the ask a question first. Why are you late? Why didn't you get to school on time? Why aren't the dishes done? Like, whatever the thing is, like, I just ask the question of why. Because maybe when I ask why this time, they got a real good excuse. Maybe not. And then I can gently give some feedback. But I'd love to hear maybe some scenarios that you've had similar experiences. Either you had somebody chewing you out when it was just a bad day or a bad time in your life, or maybe you did that to somebody. Talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it and get into a conversation about it. Also, I've been putting lots of content out on the website. Please go check it out. There's actually a really cool devotional that I put together. I'll leave the link in the description. And if you just so would like to, please subscribe to the channel and check out these other videos. Actually, I just recently turned 40, and I put a little bit of a thing out there. It's kind of heartfelt, so go check that video out. And then if you don't want to check that video out, check this one out because YouTube says you might like it. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.